Welcome to week 7, and this week we're going to be talking about Alexander the Great and Hellenism. So, Greek independence and a desire for freedom had helped them defeat the Persians, but it also meant that they remained divided and that war remained predominant throughout the Greek peninsula. And so we have the Peloponnesian War that leaves the Greek cities divided and exhausted. And so with Alexander the Great, we're going to see the rise of a leader who is able to unite ancient Greece and achieve peace and stability and promote Greek culture throughout the known world at the time. But at the same time, we're going to see some new challenges that go along with this success. In the immediate aftermath of the Peloponnesian War, with both Athens and Sparta exhausted, there are new dynamics at play in ancient Greece. Many Greek hoplites, Greek soldiers, have no work because there's no war anymore. The Persians, who have come to respect them, start hiring them as mercenaries to fight their battles in the region. And then we also see the rise of the city of Thebes that became the dominant regional power, at least for a brief period. They were able to defeat the Spartans and allied themselves with the Athenians in 378. And they defeated the Spartans at the Battle of Leuctra by using a new formation. Instead of having, your center part of the army and then on the left and then on the right, and they're kind of roughly equal. The Thebans put most of their troops on one flank, on the right-hand side, and they were able to steamroll the Spartan army and squash them before the Spartans could take advantage of the way that they were weak in the center and the flank. It's difficult to explain in a video, but you'll be able to see on the slide. The Thebans continued to expand in the 360s. They defeated the Macedonians, who were people that lived immediately to the north of Greece, and took Philip, who was the brother of the Macedonian king, as a hostage. And so Philip, who's going to become a very important figure in a second, grew up educated in Greek learning and learning Theban military tactics. However, Thebes did not have the strength and the stability to unite all of Greece. And so it starts to enter a period of decline, it overreaches itself, and it's becoming pretty clear by the 350s that the Greek cities are not going to be able to unite behind a single leader. Now, what about the Macedonians, this new group that we're introducing here? Ever since about 1100, the Greeks had had little to fear from outside invaders to the north. Remember, we have this Dorian invasion that radically reshapes the history of Greece. That happens in around 1100. After that, the threat of invasions to Greece from the north tapers off, and a reason for that is the Kingdom of Macedon. The Kingdom of Macedon, which provided an important defense of this frontier from outsiders. Constantly facing raids from barbarians to the north, the Macedonians developed a powerful army. Living further to the north than Greece proper, they lived in more fertile lands that supported horses and enabled them to develop cavalry. Because, like the Spartans, they were constantly on a war footing, they also never lost their need for kings who could unify and who could command the whole kingdom. Remember that democracy, the way that Athens is being governed at this time, is a bad idea if you're in a crisis mode. And so Macedon, the Kingdom of Macedon, is governed by kings, and they govern along with an assembly made up of the Macedonian army. So again, you have a leader, but they have to govern with some kind of consent. The nobles, who are known as the king's companions, received land from the king, and in return they supplied the king with the cavalry, the strike force of his army. And then the more poorer infantry in the Macedonian army received smaller amounts of land in return for military service. Macedonian life is full of hunting, drinking, blood feuds, and it's definitely considered a much rougher and tougher life than Greece further to the south. And the Greeks weren't really quite sure what to make of the Macedonians. They weren't really sure whether these people who spoke Greek but a slightly different dialect, these people who had submitted to the Persians, the Macedonians accepted Persian rule before the Battle of Marathon when the Kingdom of Macedon was much weaker. Were these people really Greeks or not? So they allowed Alexander I, King of Macedon, to participate in the Olympic Games, So that suggests they thought they were Greeks because only Greeks were allowed to participate in the Olympic Games. But at the same time, there's this hesitancy or this unease on the part of the ancient Greeks about the Macedonians that they're a little bit different in some way. It's Philip II who spent his formative years in captivity in Thebes, but pretty pleasant captivity. He's a hostage who's worth a lot of money. They want to keep him safe and well. Philip II is going to be the one who develops Macedonia into a major power. He uses his education in Thebes to develop the Macedonian army by developing the infantry. So the Macedonians always had strong cavalry, which mainland Greece lacked, the main Greek cities lacked because of the lack of pasture land for horses. The Macedonians had always had a pretty poorly trained infantry that were kind of just the rabble. And so Philip II comes back from Thebes. He develops the Macedonian infantry into a professional force, teaches them how to use the Greek phalanx, and he's going to use this army to expand Macedonian territory. As you can see in the map, we're on the second slide now, he focuses this expansion along the coast in order to gain access to gold and silver mines, which is going to be very important for funding his expansion. From this point onwards, he's going to start to use this army to become increasingly involved in Greek affairs. And in 338, at the Battle of Chaeronea, Philip is able to defeat the Athenians and Thebans who are allied against him. And in this battle of Chaeronea, the decisive cavalry attack is led by his son Alexander. So the Battle of Chaeronea is significant because it demonstrated that even at a young age, Alexander was just a teenager at this point, he was able to lead an army effectively. He was able to control and wield cavalry effectively. Philip treated the Greek cities fairly leniently. He knew better from the Persian Wars than to try and directly govern and occupy the Greeks. But he also knew that the Greeks were no longer able to govern themselves. And so he establishes this League of Corinth. And so it's an alliance. And the way he presents this to the Greeks is he says, we need an alliance so that we can attack the Persians in Anatolia, where there are still Greek cities that are under Persian rule. But who's dominating the alliance? Who's the alliance not going to do anything without getting their approval? The Macedonians. So the Macedonians are controlling Greece in this way. So Greece has been finally conquered by an outside power, in this case the Macedonians, and would basically be ruled by outsiders for most of the next 2,000 years of